Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another North to South show, guys. Today is Wednesday, July 28th, and before we even get into the content, we got to do some housekeeping because obviously I have not done one of these live streams in a long time. So first of all, first thing I want you guys to do, drop a hello in the chat. Love hearing from you guys, and I'd love to say hello back. Thank you guys for joining in. Just give you an update on where I've been and everything like that. Obviously, I'm going down south in a couple weeks. I'm moving. I'm making the trip to uni in a couple weeks. So my life is pretty chaotic right now. And with that, of course, you guys have seen that the live shows have been going off and on. I'm still putting out videos and everything for you guys, still keeping you guys entertained. But the live videos have been a bit iffy off and on the last couple weeks. And I could say that it probably will stay like that. I'll try to do as many live shows as I can. And it'll take me a long time. That's what I'm trying to get at. It will take me a while. After like the first week I settle into university and everything like that, that's when I expect everything to get back to normal for me to be able to do the shows every Monday and Wednesday, or the dates might have to change, but I'm hoping to get back to a full live show schedule. But just please be understanding that I'm going through a lot right now. Got a lot going as I pack up for uni and I'm about to move down there. So I'm going to be busy the next couple of weeks. I'll make videos for you. I'm just giving you a heads up on the live shows right now. So first of all, drop a hello in the chat. Second thing I want to ask from you guys, because this is our show. I don't like to pride myself that this is my show. I like to classify this as our show. The logo. Obviously, we know Texas and Oklahoma have officially made the switch to the SEC starting in 2025. It looks like they're going to come and join the SEC. Do we add Oklahoma to the North to South show logo? Let me know in the comments, because right now we have Texas in there. So no matter what, Texas is going to be in there because we already have Texas A&M in the conference. So Texas is going to stay. But the main question is, do we add Oklahoma to the North to South show logo this year, or do we wait till 2025 when they officially join the SEC? Or even, because we don't know yet, because there's still lots to be talked about, about other teams joining the SEC, or do we wait till then to see what other teams possibly join the SEC to change the logo? So I think I'm going to launch a poll later on YouTube for you guys to vote on. But even like if you guys are available now, just let me know in the chat if you would like to let me know. Do you think I should change the logo right now, or should I keep it as is right now until those teams both officially join the SEC? Now I'll give you the agenda for today. First up, I want to talk some conference realignment. I have what I think is probably going to happen. I have my own conference realignment and what I want to see and everything coming out of the SEC with obviously these two teams joining. Obviously, there's still a lot to be talked about there. I also have which second-year head coaches do I believe are best set right now to be most successful in their second season, and we're going to go through a lot of that. And then finishing off, I want to talk about Texas joining the SEC and kind of the stigma around Texas right now and that they won't be good in the SEC. Just go touch more on that. So lots to be talked about today, guys. We got a great show in store today. Of course, we were doing this a bit early. We got a 3:30 show a bit earlier today. I am busy tonight, but we still got the live show rolling. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this one. So obviously, Texas and Oklahoma look like they are officially making the move to the SEC in 2025. Now, oh, shoot. Got to do this. Now, it does look like officially Texas and Oklahoma are making the move towards the SEC in 2025. Now, obviously, there is still tons to be talked about in terms of, are other teams going to join the SEC? What's going to happen at conferences like the Big 12? All different stuff like this. But for this segment, for the purpose of this segment, we are going to take it as just Oklahoma and Texas are moving to the SEC, and we're going to have a 16-team or SEC conference. So what I'm going to do today for you guys is I'm going to give you guys what I want to see as the conference realignment and how we're going to do that, how that's all going to be set up. And then I got kind of the pod, what it looks like the SEC is going to switch to in the next coming years. Because if you've been on social media, if you've been on Twitter, you've been on Instagram, you've even been on YouTube, which you probably have, you can see a lot of people are really pitching this pod idea around, and it looks like that's what's most probable. So I'm going to get to you guys. I'm going to show you guys my most probable pods and what I would like to see from the pods in that happening. So first off, I will give you guys I don't want to say dream scenario, but I think that this would be what would be best for the SEC in terms of viewership and everything like that. Keeping teams close, playing teams that are close together, and all that fun stuff. So first off, I'll start off with my SEC East. My SEC East, so obviously we have 16 teams, which means we will have 8 teams in each division. My SEC East is Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Now, obviously, you're going to see some moves straight off the bat there. First of all, Alabama moving to the SEC East and Auburn moving to the SEC East. You look at Alabama geographically of the South, especially when you're adding in Texas and Oklahoma. And when the SEC East already somehow had Missouri, obviously when Texas A&M and Missouri both joined the league, both of those teams are really, really far out west, but they can't just throw both of them in the SEC East or West, or else one of them would have had to make a team that was already prior in the SEC West would have had to make the move over to the East. So obviously Missouri's getting kicked out. You're bringing in Alabama and Auburn, who are more East than every other team in the SEC West. So that is my that is my SEC East division right now. And then moving on to the SEC West, we got Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M. So you look at the SEC West, obviously you're adding Missouri because Missouri is one of the most West teams by far in all the SEC. So they definitely deserve to be moved to the SEC West. Oklahoma and Texas are definitely far out west. So you're going to have both of them joining the West. And then other than that, the other 5 teams that weren't Alabama and Auburn that were prior in the SEC West are staying. Now, what I want to see, I still want to see the cross-divisional matchups that are set each and every season. I know a lot of people are against that because, oh, you play the same team every single year, and then once every 6 years, you get to play. If you're in the SEC East, you get to play your Alabama, you get to play Auburn, you get to play LSU. If you're in the SEC West, every 6 seasons, you're going to see like an Alabama-Georgia game, something like that. You're going to see an Alabama-Florida game. So there is a long period of time between those big-time matchups, those big-time divisional cross-up matchups that we all love seeing. But I think for the most part, it would really, really suck if we got rid of some of the best rivalries in all of the SEC if we switch the divisions around, because one very key rivalry in the SEC that you wouldn't get to see each and every year if we didn't have this set cross-divisional thing is Alabama LSU, and I'll be going through each of my set SEC matchups, cross-divisional matchups. So obviously I just said my first one, Alabama will have LSU every single season. Auburn will have Arkansas every season. Florida will have Oklahoma. Obviously, that's a very interesting one. Obviously, they just played in the Cotton Bowl this year, but that's not why I picked them. I just wanted a big-time matchup, something like that. And that goes for my next one when we have Georgia and Texas being the cross-divisional matchup. Obviously, Georgia's cross-divisional matchup was already with Auburn. Now that Auburn moves to the SEC East, you don't need that anymore, so you get to basically pick any of the 2 new teams to have them. So I went Texas for Georgia. And then Florida, obviously, theirs is LSU. Now, LSU is still in the West, but you have Alabama moving to the East. And to miss out on that Alabama-LSU rivalry would really, really suck. So I wanted to keep that in there. I wanted LSU's opponent to be Alabama, not Florida. So we still get an amazing matchup when Florida takes on Oklahoma each and every single season. Kentucky stays with Mississippi State. South Carolina stays with Texas A&M. And then switching around Tennessee and Vanderbilt. So Tennessee is going to get Ole Miss each and every season, which obviously Ole Miss was Vanderbilt every season for their cross-divisional rival. And then we're going to have Vanderbilt and Missouri playing every season. So how this is going to work, obviously, you're going to have to play your 7 division games. And then on top of that, you will have to play your 2 cross-divisional games. Obviously, I just said it. One of those games will be set in stone for who you're playing each and every single season. The other ones will be rotational, which is a total of 9 conference games. And then the winner of each division obviously goes on to the SEC championship, much like how we do it now. This is basically how the SEC is run right now, other than the fact you're adding another game, because right now you play all 6 teams in your division and you play 2 cross-divisional games. That's a total of 8 conference games. Winners of each division go on to the SEC championship and so on and so on. So basically you're adding one more conference game to this and switching around a couple of the cross-divisional set matchups for every single season. So now getting into my pods, and pods are kind of the favorable thing for what's going to happen in the SEC. We've seen tons of stuff. If you've been on, again, any social media platform, you'll see some kind of graphic about these SEC pods for the next coming years. Basically, what the pods are is, instead of having 2 divisions in the SEC, they're going to break down each division. Do we want to call it division? They're breaking down each section into 4. So you're going to have 4 groups of 4. So that means you play all 3 teams in your division. And then what the idea is right now, you're going to play two of the teams from all the other pods to create a 9-game conference schedule in that sense. So I'll go through my pods first. My first pod, which I guess you could call the most East. I didn't really have names for these. I just put them in pods. So you could say that this is the East quad. You have Florida, you have Georgia, you have South Carolina, and you have Tennessee. I know Kentucky. I've seen a lot of people put Kentucky in this pod with Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. But I put Tennessee. First of all, Tennessee is closer to South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida than Kentucky is. And Tennessee is also more east than Lexington is, or Knoxville is more east than Lexington is. So if you want to take the most east teams, and that's kind of how I did the most geographically proper I could, that's why I have that as my first pod. Now, my second pod, Alabama, Auburn. So obviously they both play in Alabama. You're going to get both of them there. Kentucky, and then Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt plays in Nashville. So those are my 4 teams for that pod. Going on to my next one, which I guess you could classify as the start of the SEC West, or what I just called the SEC West when I was doing my divisional games, or my divisions, breaking down my divisions. We have Arkansas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Mississippi. So obviously you have Mississippi State. Obviously, you have the 2 Mississippi teams in there. You have LSU, which is right next to Mississippi, and then you have Arkansas, which is right on top of Louisiana. So you're going to have all those teams really close, and then finishing up with Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M. 2 Texas teams in there. Oklahoma is right above of Texas, and then you're going to have Missouri, who is also really close to them. All of those teams are pretty far out west. So now I said it already. In each pod, play all 3 opponents. You have 6 rotating cross-pod games. So for instance, let's take South Carolina, for example. So South Carolina, each season, they play Florida, they play Georgia, and they play Tennessee. And then what they do for the Alabama, Auburn, Kentucky, Vanderbilt pod is you'd see South Carolina, let's say in year 1, they play in Alabama and they play Kentucky at home. Then year 2, they play Auburn at home, then they go to Vanderbilt. Then year 3, you go back to playing Alabama and Kentucky, but instead you get Alabama at home and you travel to Kentucky. And then the next year after that, instead of getting Auburn at home, you go to Auburn and get Vanderbilt at home. So that's how it kind of worked for each cross-pod game and everything like that. Each team would get a home and home series, I guess, in every 4 years. You play each team twice in every 4 years, and one of those will be at home, one of those will be away. So it kind of works out pretty nicely in that sense for the pods. My only question is, with these pods, how on earth does the SEC championship work? Now, a lot of people have pitched their ideas. Do you do just the 2 best teams with the 2 best records go on to play in the SEC championship, completely disregarding the pods? Do you do the pod winners? You take the 4 best pod winners and the 2 best of those record-wise and with the tiebreakers and everything like that, go and play for the SEC championship? Or something that I thought would be really interesting. Obviously, I don't know how this works for the schedule. This is highly unlikely, but it's just fun to think about. I love throwing ideas like this around. A 4-team SEC playoff. Imagine already on top of adding the college football playoff back in the 2010s. Imagine in the 2020s, you start having conference championship playoffs where you have 4 teams going for a conference championship. Just for example, what we'd probably see this season in that Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee pod, you'd have probably Georgia winning. You'd have Alabama, most likely LSU, and then Oklahoma. So you'd have a playoff within the SEC of those 4 teams. If you want to talk about money, which is basically why these super conferences are being built and everything like that, if you want to add entertainment value, adding an extra week of 2 massive matchups inside the SEC is exactly what these networks want. So again, this probably does not work out with all the scheduling and everything like that. You have very limited weeks, and obviously you need some rest weeks before going into bowl season, before going into the playoffs, before even going to the conference championship finals, because 2 teams out of that playoff would obviously go on there. You're putting these kids through a lot of football, but it'd be really, really interesting. Again, if you want to make money, a 4-team conference playoff would be very exciting. But again, it's not going to happen. If we're being all honesty, the 4-team conference playoff would not happen. So what do I like more? I'm going to be honest. I really like the division still. The pods just, even though it makes sense and everything like that, it just screws around with my mind. The fact that I don't get to see an Alabama LSU game every single season, the fact that I wouldn't get to see games like Who else would? The fact that I wouldn't get to see like South Carolina play a Kentucky every year, even though that's not a big time matchup. The fact that I wouldn't get to see an Alabama play a team like Ole Miss every season. The fact that I wouldn't get to see Alabama, Texas A&M every season. The fact that I don't get all these games that I'm used to seeing so much with these pod things. And yes, I would get to see them every other year. And it works out nicely that we get home and home. So I'd get to see a game like Georgia, Alabama more often. I'd get to see a game like Alabama, Florida more often, stuff like that. But I honestly really like the divisions. I want to see the best rivalries in the SEC played each and every season. Your Alabama LSU's, obviously. The Florida Georgia will stay. You'd still get to see Auburn, Georgia, everything like that. I want those to stay year in and year out, that I get to see those rivalries. So right now, I'm a fan of the division format, but ultimately it's probably going to lean towards the pods. And as long as they figure out what happens with the SEC championship and what two teams and how those two teams make it to the SEC championship, I would not be complaining at all with the pod situation. It's just right now, I very slightly lean towards the divisions. So that is the first segment for you guys today. Let me know in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts on the standings or the conference realignment? Would you guys like to see a pod situation, or would you guys like to see a division situation? And even if you have the time, let me know your pods or anything like that. Comment that down below in the comment section. I'd be more than happy to bring it up on the screen and show everyone else on the live stream your idea for the divisions and everything like that. I will take a short break, and I will be back right after this video to talk about second-year head coaches in the SEC and which guy I think will have the most successful second year. So definitely do not go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss out on this. Well, I'm out taking a drink of water and catching my breath to bring you guys some more amazing content. Let me tell you how you guys can contribute to the TDs to HR's brand. Number 1, as easy as it sounds, nothing helps us out more than your constant support through watching the videos, liking the videos, being subscribed, and commenting. Your engagement is what is most important to us here at TDs to HRs, and we appreciate your support. Number 2, channel memberships. Down below next to the subscribe button, you will see a button that says join. Click it to join one of our 2 tier levels. Each tier level comes with exclusive emojis and badges, and the upper tiers get exclusive content not available to other subscribers. Payments are monthly, and memberships start at $2.99 a month and only go up to $5.99 a month. 3. In the description, there will be a link for direct contributions to the channel. This is completely voluntary, and the funds you decide to forward us will be used to improve the quality of our content. Your support to the TDs to HR brand means the world to us, guys, because without you guys, there is no channel. So this is our channel. Thank you for your constant support, and now let's get back to some great content. Let's continue on with the show. Just before we get into talk about the second-year head coaches, we do have a question from SawBlade61. Have your thoughts changed on the Georgia versus Clemson game? Last time I watched your show, you said you think Georgia will win that game. I still stand very, very true to my statement that I think Georgia will win that game. And honestly, it can't change, because unless some crazy injury happens, like JT Daniels gets hurt, or DJ Uiagalelei gets hurt, or someone else on either of those two teams get hurt, there's no really reference point that I have for this game other than what I already think, because I'm not going to get to see any of these other games before Georgia Clemson. The only other possible thing that can change is an injury. So I think to this point, there really is no switching for me in this game. I know the game's a 4-point favorite. I know Clemson is favorite. I tell you, though, I feel really, really confident about this Georgia team this year. Even though I don't like Georgia, I hate Clemson, I hate Georgia, don't like either of these teams, Georgia really scares me this year. I think this is a very well-rounded team that is in a win-now mode, that if they're going to do anything special in the next coming years, I feel like this is the year for Georgia. So right now, my decision has made the same for that pick. Obviously, I'm going to go through and do my SEC Week 1 picks a week out from the season starting. So that's going to be, definitely stay tuned for that. I'm going to do those weekly like I did last year. So you'll see my official pick then. I know I've done an early preview and kind of give my early prediction. But for right now, to answer your question, my opinions have not changed, really. I just feel really confident about this Georgia offense and what they're building there. And then this defense is definitely one of the best in all of college football. Now, you could say the same about Clemson's defense. I mean, you're going to see the 2 best D-lines in all of the country going at it in this first game of the season. It's going to be an absolute treat. But right now, I'm sticking with Georgia. I'm sticking with the Georgia Bulldogs in this one. So great question, Sawblade. Again, anyone else who has a question, wants a question answered, feel free to drop it in the chat. Be more than happy to bring it up on the screen and answer that for you. So I appreciate the question, Sawblade, and let's continue on with the show. Talking about, what are we going to talk about now? We are going to talk about second-year SEC head coaches because, yes, all the attention so far in the preseason, in SEC media days is, the first-year head coaches, because we have a lot. We have 4 SEC first-year head coaches coming into the SEC this season. Obviously, you're going to have Shane Beamer at South Carolina. You're going to have Josh Heupel at Tennessee. You're going to have Brian Harsin at Auburn, and you're going to have Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. All the attention seems to be focused on them, and it's well-deserved because obviously first-year head coaches are a big deal. You don't know what their program's going to look like. You need a lot of questions answered because you haven't seen them produce a team on the field. But I think we're forgetting in the SEC that the SEC has 4, as much as we have coming into the SEC, we have 4 returning second-year head coaches coming into the SEC this season. When we saw Lane Kiffin's first season with Ole Miss last year, we saw Mike Leach's first season with Mississippi State last year, we saw Eli Drinkwitz's first season with Missouri last year, and then we also saw Sam Pittman's first season with the Arkansas Razorbacks last season. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of pitch to you guys who I think is going to have the most successful second season, because I think the third season is definitely the most important towards a coach's tenure at whatever program. Like, we're not even talking SEC, we're talking any program in college football, because kind of that third year point is where it's like, okay, you've had 2 years under your belt. This is kind of your program now. You have the players you want, you have the scheme you want, you have the coaches you want. Go out and show what you're at full potential and everything like that. But I think the second year plays a big role in how the third year goes, because you're kind of setting yourself up for that third year and kind of setting yourself up really for the future of your program, because the second year shows a lot about what you're going to show recruits for the next coming years. It shows a lot to other teams, how you're looking and how much of a threat you're actually becoming in your division or your conference and everything like that. So I'm going to go through and give you guys my predictions, or my thoughts on who is going to be the most successful second-year head coach in the SEC. Now, first off, define success, because there's so many different ways that we could define success in this scenario. We could say who's going to be the most improved coach, and you could talk about most improved as an eye test, or you could talk most improved in terms of record. You could talk who's going to be the best second-year head coach is just who's going to have the best record. We could talk about who's going to have the best second year as who has the best team, the eye test of the best team. There's all these great questions and everything like that. So I kind of have it broken down into categories who I think is going to be the best head coach in a couple of the categories I have who's going to be the best team, most improved team in terms of eye test, but we're going to have who's going to be the most improved team in terms of record. And then we have who's going to be the best team straight up in terms of record. So those are the 3 categories and I will start off, and I also have who's going to be the best team eye test. So first off, I want to start off with who will have the best record overall out of these 4 teams. So obviously that is Ole Miss, Missouri, Arkansas, and Mississippi State coming into this season. And the team I have for the best record is, I'm going to pick 2 teams. I'm going to go with Missouri and Ole Miss. And if I had to pick one, even though it was really tough, I'd lean towards Missouri, because Missouri has, in my opinion, a much easier schedule than Ole Miss, because not only does Ole Miss have to play the annual SEC West slate, but even some of their out-of-conference games aren't easy this year. Louisville, they play Louisville first week. Now, I fully expect that to be a win for Ole Miss, but who knows how Louisville's going to come out swinging this season. And then also, Ole Miss plays a team in Liberty this year, which obviously, I've said this every time I've talked about Liberty. Liberty is a team that you look at on paper. You see this team on your schedule in 2021, and you're like, it's Liberty. Why should we be worried about them? Because you think of the logo, you think of the Liberty logo. And honestly, what image or what comes to mind when you think of the Liberty logo? Pretty much nothing, because that is a team that you should beat 10 times out of 10 if you were an SEC program. But Liberty is a very, very, very good team this year. We're going to see how Malik Willis does this season. Obviously, he is one of the better QBs in all of the college football this season. So very intriguing game there. You look at Missouri. Missouri travels to Boston College this season, and obviously they do get Texas A&M at home, which is going to be kind of a tough game. You talk about out-of-conference games or out-of-division games for Ole Miss. Obviously, you're going to have to play Vanderbilt, as they do every season, which should be a win, but you also travel to Tennessee. Could be a bit of an interesting game there, but overall, I think Missouri probably, if I had to put money on either of these teams having the better record, I'd take Missouri just because of the schedule they have. I have both of these teams going around 7-5, 8-4 this season, and at the absolute best, I could pick out 9 wins for each of these teams. Like, that's how good I feel about both these teams this year, and the schedule I honestly think lines up very nicely for Mizzou to pick up 9 wins. And Ole Miss, if they come out swinging, if they start to play some defense, they could probably pick up 9 wins this season. You're just going to probably suffer a loss to Alabama, LSU, and Texas A&M, but the other games are definitely winnable games for Ole Miss, 110%. So that's who I have will be the best record in their second season. So obviously I have Lane Kiffin and Eli Drinkwitz. Best team overall in terms of eye test coming in or after this season, I'm going with the Ole Miss Rebels and Lane Kiffin because obviously you saw what they did last year. If we're talking in terms of competitiveness and actually giving good teams a shock, obviously Ole Miss had an amazing game against Alabama. Ole Miss didn't get the opportunity to play Texas A&M. Obviously, that game got canceled multiple times due to coronavirus, which was very unfortunate because that was supposed to be our CBS game of the week. Very excited to see that one. And even this team, they did lose to LSU, but it was a very close game. I think this Ole Miss team definitely has the capability to be the best or the biggest threat out of any of these teams I just named in the SEC in terms of winning a division or challenging for a division championship. Because Missouri, even though I think Missouri is going to be very good this season, and I think Missouri does have a shot at being the second best team in all the SEC this season, or the SEC East this season, sorry, I think they do have a shot at getting that second place spot. Can I see Missouri right now challenging Georgia? Not really. They didn't really last year, and I'm not really feeling confident about Missouri doing the same this year. Can I see Ole Miss challenging Alabama? Now, obviously, they played a very close game last year. Now, obviously, this game is being played in Alabama this season. Ole Miss, on the other hand, though, they have the offense to compete with Alabama. Does Missouri have the offense to compete with Georgia? I don't think so. Does Missouri have the defense to compete with Georgia right now? I don't think so. Does Ole Miss have the defense to compete with Alabama? No, they do not. But does Ole Miss have the offense to compete with Alabama? Yes, they do. So if I look at any team, unit specifically, like you pick out offense and defense, who has the best unit to be able to compete with some of the top teams, I am going Ole Miss 110%. Matt Corral is the best QB in the SEC, in my opinion. You've got some great wide receivers out there. Dontario Drummond, Braylon Sanders. Your running back room is going to be super stacked. Jerron Ely. You're going to have Snoop Connor. There's a lot to love about this Ole Miss offense. And if anyone, eye test-wise, is going to be the best team out of these 4 teams that I have named, in my opinion, it is going to be the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, eye test, who's going to be the most improved in terms of eye test? And for this one, I'm going to go the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, Arkansas obviously went 3-7 last season. I say this every time. You know what? This is the last time I'm ever going to mention this. I'm never going to say it in another video. Asterisk 4-6 because of the Auburn game. I know Arkansas fans love to talk about that, but that's the absolute last time that I'm mentioning that when I talk about Arkansas, because it's time to transition on to this season. Arkansas went 3-7 last year, but this is going to be a very competitive team this season. Obviously, still a lot to be told about what KJ Jefferson is going to do for this offense, but I think he has great weapons around him. Obviously, Treylon Burks is going to be one of the better wide receivers in all the SEC, in all of college football this season. He's going to be a great weapon for KJ Jefferson to have on the outside. You're also going to have Traylon Smith in the running game. I think this offense is in a really, really good spot to have a successful season. Defensively is really where I look at Arkansas, and I'm going to see major improvements in terms of eye test. Grant Morgan is looking like he's going to be one of the better linebackers in all the SEC. Let's not forget that is a linebacker conference unit that you're also going to have to compete with. Will Anderson, you're also going to have to compete with Christian Harris. You're also going to have to compete with Christopher Allen, all those Alabama guys, and all the other guys that you got on the other programs. So I think Grant Morgan's definitely one of the better guys in all the SEC, and lined up with him also Bumper Pool out of Arkansas, definitely one of the better linebackers in all the SEC. So I think defensively at the linebacker position, you're going to be really good. Looking at the secondary, Jalen Catalon's going to be really good this year. Obviously, one of the best safeties in the SEC. So if I'm taking eye test from what you saw from Arkansas last year, which was obviously very improved from years prior, I think you're going to see an even more improvement and start to see Arkansas giving some of these mid-tier SEC West teams a run for their money. They're going to come out with a win against an Auburn this season, against a LSU this season, maybe against a Ole Miss this season. I bet you in one of those 3 games, you will see the Arkansas Razorbacks come out with a win in one of those, because that's how competitive they are. I'm not going to tell you which one it's going to be, but I guarantee you in one of those 3 games, Arkansas will come out with a win in one of those. And then overall, my last one, I have most improved record, which means basically who's going to have the best margin of how many games they won last year compared to how many games they won this year. I'm going with Ole Miss. It was really between Ole Miss and Arkansas for me, and you can make a strong case for Missouri as well. But I'm going with Ole Miss. Ole Miss only won 4 games last year, and again, I said it. I think that Ole Miss could win 8 games pretty easily this season, win 7 games. So that is already putting you at 7 games. You're going to have 3 wins. I also think that Arkansas has a good chance to win 6 games this season, but I think it's more likely for Ole Miss to get in that +3 margin. And then, of course, I also said Missouri has a good chance to win 8 games this season, and they won 5 games last year. That obviously puts you at a +3 margin. But if I had to put money on any of these teams getting to a +3 margin, I'd probably put it on Ole Miss. And again, I said I think this Ole Miss team could win 8 games, and that's going to put you at a +4 margin for an Ole Miss team that went 4-5 last season. So those are my kind of categories that I had for, yes, you want to talk about who's going to be the most successful in their second year in the SEC out of the head coaches, but it really depends on how you define success. So that's why I kind of broke it down in all those categories, and that's how I did it. So that's that segment, guys. We have one more segment left, but again, if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the chat. I'd love to speak with you guys, love to answer them for you. And yeah, I'll just wait a bit, see if any questions roll in, and then we'll get on to me talking about the Texas situation, because this is definitely going to be one of the most interesting ones. And this is one, I mean, I didn't really have any notes for any of these. Like, I obviously planned out my divisions and my pods, and I wrote down my predictions for like who's going to be the most improved and everything like that. But this Texas one is going to be all straight from the heart, because this is something that I don't want to say is making me mad, but I just think something that people are really, really misjudging coming up when Texas finally joins the SEC. So let me know if you have any questions, guys. And if not, we'll get into that Texas segment. Another thing, by the way, my Blue Jays are coming back Friday, so that's something I'm really excited for. Me and Bernie, who obviously is the other guy on touchdowns to home runs, we're going to that game with our friend TD's Insider, so we should have a great time there. So I'm excited to finally go to a sports game. I haven't been to a sports game since January 14th, 2020. So it's been a long, long time. I cannot wait. And I'm also excited to finally get to some college football games this year, looking at going to every single South Carolina Gamecocks game. Obviously, that is all their home games. Hopefully, I'm going to try to make it to some away games. I would definitely be looking at going to that Georgia-Clemson game if the Gamecocks weren't playing at 7 o'clock that Saturday in Shane Beamer's first season. So as much as I'd love to go see that Georgia-Clemson game, priorities, got to see Shane Beamer's first game against Eastern Illinois. It's going to be a great one. Absolutely great game we're about to see there. So if we don't have any more questions, which it doesn't look like we do, we will now get into the Texas segment. So obviously, you didn't need me to tell you that Texas was joining the SEC. You didn't need me to tell you that Oklahoma was joining the SEC. I'm not really, if I like to break it down from a news standpoint or what my role is kind of on YouTube to you guys, I'm not really a news breaker. I'm not the guy who's going to, as soon as the news breaks, I'm coming out and making a video. I kind of wait a couple days, let it sit in, or I just do it whenever I have the live shows and then talk about that. So obviously, when that news broke, I wasn't the first guy running out of the table and going and giving my opinions on that. I waited a couple days to talk about the whole Texas-Oklahoma situation. Now, there are a lot of people who obviously had very, very strong opinions the first day that Texas and Oklahoma looked to make the move towards the SEC, and they posted them. And a lot of what you're going to see, a lot of what people have said about this is more so focused on Texas. Obviously, you saw from the thumbnail of this video, this is going to be way more centered around Texas than Oklahoma. But what people are saying about Texas right now is Texas is not a good football program. It doesn't matter that they're going to join the SEC. They're going to get absolutely walloped by Alabama, by LSU, by Georgia, by Auburn, by Florida, all these different teams. Texas has no place being in the SEC. They are a trash program right now. There's no point in them joining. And to that, I say what I'm kind of doing in this video, what I'm kind of talking about is I'm not telling anyone that they're wrong. I'm not telling anyone that they're wrong, because obviously that is predictions of you saying, or it's your honest belief that you think Texas is going to be a trash program. And by the time they get here in 2025, they're going to be the exact same. And nothing will have changed. And Texas will still be losing some pretty bad games to Big 12 teams before they join the SEC. What I want to say to that is, we have no clue how to predict really any team in college football for the next 4 years because there is still so much to be determined. Is anyone on the team that is currently on this Texas Longhorns team right now going to be on that team when Texas does join the SEC? No. Can we have any prediction on how Vanderbilt is going to be for the next 4 years? And finally, when they get to 2025, do we have any valid prediction on how Vanderbilt is going to be there? Now, you might have beliefs and thoughts and everything like that, which might be backed up by your stats and everything of how they've done in the past. But all in all, Vanderbilt could be the best team in all of college football going into 2025. It's unlikely, but who knows? We don't have time machines yet. We can't fast forward into 2025 and see who is at the top of college football. And more importantly, how is Texas football right now in 2025? We can't see it right now. So that's why I feel like people saying that Texas football right now means absolutely nothing coming to the SEC and they're just going to be a trash program is just absolutely ridiculous to me because, first of all, we talk about, obviously, I brought up the absurd statement that what if Vanderbilt's the best team in all of college football? Now, you take that from a standpoint of, okay, why is Vanderbilt not in a good position right now? They're not in a good position because overall, they don't have the money to compete with the other SEC teams. They don't have the fan base strength. They don't have the TV deals. They're not playing in big time games every single day, every single Saturday. They're not getting the big time recruits. They don't have the best facilities in the SEC. All this different kind of stuff makes an accumulation of why Vanderbilt is kind of in the situation they are in now. Now, obviously, Clark Lea's coming in and he could completely turn that program around. And who knows? Again, 2025, Vanderbilt could be the best team in the SEC. We have no clue yet. But what my kind of point is there is pretty good reasons on why Vanderbilt is towards the bottom of the SEC right now. Now, Texas, why are they're not towards the bottom of the Big 12. Like, let's be honest, this team is still an upper half team of the Big 12. No matter how you feel about the Big 12, they're still in the upper half of their conference. Why is Texas struggling right now in terms of a college football mindset, in terms of they're predicted really high in the top 25 each and every season, and they never finish up to that expectation? Player development has all obviously been there. Coaching has obviously been there. Now, they're obviously trying to fix both of those things when they bring in Steve Sarkisian, and hopefully him and his staff are able to develop players a lot better because recruiting was not the problem at all in Texas. They always had great recruiting classes throughout Tom Herman's career at Texas. It was just player development and coaching and everything like that. They just weren't able to win some big time games and really avoid mistake games and avoid slip up games that really cost Texas towards the total of all their seasons. Now, what my point is here is, guys, the Texas Longhorns, that Texas logo and everything like that is a $1.1 billion program, the highest rated net worth value out of any college football team in all of college football. Guys, this is the Dallas Cowboys of college football. This is basically the Dallas Cowboys of college sports in general. There is a huge difference between a team like Texas and a team like your Missouris or whatever, which Missouri this season against Texas, Missouri could probably go out and beat Texas. Texas could probably go out and beat Missouri. But regardless of what happens this season, please no effect on what's going to happen in 2025. Because again, this is Steve Sarkisian's first season, and every single guy that is on this Texas team currently is not going to be on that 2025 team when they finally come to the SEC. Guys, this Texas team has the ability, they have the money to build a dynasty in Texas, especially when they come to the SEC, because let's not forget that that's going to be a huge recruiting spectacle. Not only do you get to go play for the highest, biggest college football brand in all of the world, you get to go play for them. You get to play in the best conference in the world, in the nation. You get to play in a state which is crazy about football. You're going to have so many different marketing opportunities now with NIL in. There is so many different things about Texas that can make them a dynasty program. And who knows, Steve Sarkisian, obviously, he was one of the greatest offensive minds in all of college football last season. You saw with how good of a production Alabama's offense was able to put up last season. What if he is the answer at Texas? What if, even if he's not the answer at Texas, why does it matter? Because in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, we have no idea how to predict this Texas team. All I know is that they have the ability to be a really, really, really good program in the SEC. And my kind of point of this whole thing is, you can have your opinion that you don't think Texas is going to be that good in the SEC in 2025. You can have your opinion that you do think Texas is going to be good in 2025. But to come out as confident and as cocky as some people are that Texas is not a good football program at all right now, and they're just going to be absolutely left in the rubbish in the SEC, is just completely absurd in my opinion. Because, guys, the number one program in all of college football in terms of money, and especially when we're entering the Moneyball era, when all this kind of stuff, this super conference stuff, this college football expansion stuff is happening, this NIL stuff, it's all favoring the teams with money, and no one has more money than Texas right now. So I just be very, very cautious if you are going out and you are spreading your opinion on Texas at all, because I'm not really spreading my opinion here. I think that Texas, obviously, right now, I wouldn't say they're not one of the most premier programs in all of college football right now. Obviously, showed the last couple seasons this team has lost some big games. They haven't been able to live up to expectation and everything like that. So I'm not speaking on Texas right now. What I am saying is that this team is just as capable as being one of the top teams in all of college football when they finally do join the SEC, as they are being what all these other people are saying, that they're just going to be complete rubbish in the SEC. So before you put out any statements about Texas, think it through. Think about how far away this SEC thing actually is, because I know this is coming out now. All this news is breaking now. And obviously we're thinking about the whole conference realignment and everything that's going on with the SEC in right now terms. Think about it in 10 years. You can't see 10 years into the future. So that is my only concern to people who are going out and putting out these statements that Texas isn't going to be a threat in the SEC. Now, Oklahoma, on the other hand, obviously people do see them as a threat. Why do they see Oklahoma as a threat? Well, one, they had the money. They're a big-time program, and they've had tons of recent success. They made the playoffs a bunch the last couple seasons. How many playoff appearances have they had? They didn't make it last year. They did make it in 2019. Obviously, they got blown out by LSU. You make it in 2018 with Kyler Murray. You make it in 2017. You have a rough game against Georgia that ended up in overtime. You obviously lost that game, but that was one of the greatest games in all of college football playoff era. I think that is the greatest college football playoff game of all time, in my opinion. Really loved watching that game, but Oklahoma is just a proven team. So that's why people are scared of Oklahoma, because the last couple seasons, Oklahoma has been one of the more dominant teams in all of college football. Texas hasn't. So that's why people are like, okay, Oklahoma's a threat to the SEC, but Texas isn't. Guys, I just warn you, I'll say it one more time. Whatever is going on in college football right now, through this transition period where we don't know what the future of college football is. I just brought on Josh Pate a couple days ago talking about what his opinions were on the future of college football and everything like that. He was just like, it is so unclear right now. There's still so much to be said, so much to be talked about, that you really can't see what is going on in college football. You can't see towards the future in college football. So just be wary of what you're saying online. That is all I have to say for this segment. So that is going to be the show for today, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about the whole Texas-Oklahoma thing. Any other questions you guys have? And if not, we will wrap it up, and I'll send you guys off for a great rest of your day. What time do we got? We got 4:14. 4:14. I'll give it a minute, wait for any last questions, and then we will wrap it up. Does not look like we have any last questions, so I'll end the broadcast here, guys. Again, appreciate you guys all tuning in. We will be back. No show on Monday, but we will be back next Wednesday. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Obviously, check out for more videos. Thanks for watching, and definitely come back next time.